Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome in. Happy spring here. We're starting off a new unit here. It's on sequences, which I'm really excited about. I think it's going to be really fun here. Just wanted to cover a couple things here. The Fibonacci sequence, how to compute values in the Fibonacci sequence, and then we'll do a little comparison at the end of the video between functions, which hopefully we kind of know about already, and sequences. So here we go. A sequence is a sort of a chain of numbers that follow a pattern generally, and they have a way of computing themselves, right? And we'll look at some examples here in a minute. Here's a sequence, right? An example of a sequence. This is a very famous sequence called the Fibonacci sequence, which was discovered by an Italian mathematician years ago. Has applications all over the place, but a lot in nature as well. Like you'll see the Fibonacci pattern appearing in nature. And here are the terms of the Fibonacci sequence, right? The first 6 terms, I guess, and then you can see that the sequence keeps on going and going and going, and that is sort of known as the nth term, right? So we could compute any sort of term of the Fibonacci sequence. So let's look at the rule here for the Fibonacci sequence. So what it is it's to get the next term, we add up the 2 terms prior, right? So for example, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, 5 plus 8 is 13, right? 8 plus 13 is 21, and so on, right? To get the next one, we would add up 13 plus 21, and we could add it in there. So that is the Fibonacci sequence, right? You can see it grows, right? Pause the video and look at it for a minute and see if you can sort of identify that pattern if you need to. And then when you're ready, you can look at the Fibonacci sequence rule, which is written right here. And that basically says that the nth term is computed by adding up the 2 previous terms, right? So the nth term could be any term at all. It could be this one right here, which would be that would be the 0 term, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. That would be the 7th term, right? And we compute that, of course, by adding the 8 and the 13. So the n minus 2, well, if n is 7, then n minus 2, that would be 5. That would be the 8 right here. This is the 5th term. Oh, sorry, I think I messed that up here. 1, 1. Okay, so, oh, yes, right. That would be the 5th term because we start at 0. And this would be the 6th term, right, because we're computing the 7th term right there. So I know this looks kind of confusing, but really what it's saying is you just add up the 2 sequence terms before the nth term, right? So we have to kind of, we can only compute one value at a time. So let's get a quick illustration of this and do a technology application of finding the 40th term of the Fibonacci sequence, right? So here we go. We can see, right, the term and the number right here. So the sixth term is 13 and so on, and we want to know the 40th term, right? So now we could just start adding and adding and adding, but I will tell you that, as we'll see in a minute, the numbers get big quickly and it becomes quite tedious to find that. So we're going to use Google Sheets here to make our life a little easier. So let's go over here to the Fibonacci tab here on our sequence, and let's just start writing out some of the easier values that we already saw in there. So 1, right? 1 plus nothing is still another 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 right here, that's going to give us 3. And then 5. And then so on and so forth. Maybe that's enough, right? Here we could put our terms. There's 0, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, and so on. And we would go all the way down to 40. Okay. So now we're going to use the computational power of Google Sheets to figure this out for us. So we're, of course, going to type in an equal sign since we're no longer storing the values, now we're computing something. And I'm just going to use the clicker. So I'm going to type equals, and then I'm going to click on this one, B4, and I'm going to do a plus, and I'm going to click on B5, right? So the cell here in B6, that would be the 5th term of the Fibonacci sequence, is going to be adding up 3 plus 5 right there. So let's hit return, let's hit enter, and there it is, it's 8. Now we know that that is true, so let's go ahead and copy that, and let's paste that right here and see what we can figure out. Okay, that didn't work. We'll hit Command or Control V here, and we'll paste it. So I used Command C to copy it, and I used Command V to paste it. Other things you can do is go here to edit, copy, and paste. You can see them right there, and you can see that Google Sheets is smart enough to know that we go ahead and we want to, like, if we're computing the 8th cell, right, then we add B6 plus B7, right? So you can see that it's following the rule all the way down here, and you can see that the values are starting to get quite large, and they're getting quite large quite rapidly. So you will have to do some copying and pasting to get all the way down to the 40th term here. Remember the term, we're going to start numbering at 0. You could start numbering at 1, but for this one, let's start numbering at 0, which means we're going to have to paste all the way into the 41st cell here. So, okay, I will leave you to figure out what the 40th term is there using that technique. So, okay, there we go. That's good for our technology application. Now, we're going to do another one later. So, okay, don't watch this whole video now. Maybe that's time to pause it, cut the video, and come back to it later. And here we go. We're going to go down to slide number 13. Now, when we're in slide 13, what we're going to be doing is comparing functions and sequences. Now, technically, a sequence is a type of function. However, there are some key differences that we're going to look at in these slides right here. Now, we're making the video right now, so here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a function, as we've done a number of times in our class, and we're going to make a graph for that function, as we've also done a number of times. Now, as we haven't done yet, we're going to create a sequence, and we're going to make a sequence graph. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's do it here. So sequences right here. So actually, first things first, let's decide what our function rule is going to be. And I want you to pick something with at least 2 operations. So multiplying and adding, or dividing and adding, or multiplying and subtracting, right? Something like that. So let's say f of x equals 3x minus 4. We'll choose a good function here, a simple one. F of x equals 3x minus 4. Okay, now we'll go over to our Google Sheets, and we'll see that, notice that we have a function tab and a sequence tab. Let's grab the function tab right here, and let's start building up a little table here. So we've got x, we've got f of x, maybe I better throw in the parentheses there, f of x, and we've got something new here, which is I'm calling formula, Sheets formula. So let's go ahead and make that, okay, x. So now, as we know, our function values can be anything. So we want to make sure to include some negatives. So let's do like a -4, let's do a -2, let's do a -1, let's do a 0, let's do a 1, and we can add in some crazy ones, like we could do 50, and we could do 50.222, right? Because we can do any number can be an x value of a function, right? We can include decimals, we can include fractions, we can include negatives, right? Any number at all can be an x. Now this is going to be different when we're looking at sequences. Okay, so let's compute our function values. Now you might be able to go ahead and maybe we should fill in our formula here. F of x equals 3x minus 4. Now you might be able to just do some of these in your head, but it's probably easier to let the computer do the work for us and again hit that equal sign to compute, right? So we're going to compute, we're going to multiply our x value. So we're going to say 3 times, and we're going to, okay, that didn't work, equals 3 times, let's get the multiplication symbol in there, there we go, 3 times. Now instead of typing in -4 as I would on a calculator or writing it as I would on paper, I'm going to go ahead and click on it, right? So B4, it's going to multiply whatever is in cell B4. It's going to multiply that by 3. And now after I type this, it's going to subtract 4. Okay, let's hit enter. Good, -16. That does make sense. Now, if I change this number here, if I put in 2 there, look at what's going to happen. Look at that. The value changes automatically, right? Because it's taking whatever is in that cell and it's multiplying it by 3 and then subtracting 4. So let's go back to our -4 as we had it initially. Okay, now we've got a bunch of other values we want to compute. So let's do that and let's compute them. Okay, and you can see here, note the y-intercept at 0, -4, and look at this. Now when we put our decimals in the mix, worked out just fine, right? You can see we multiply by 3, we subtract 4, works out great. And so there we go. We've built our f of x table here. Okay, now let's see. I do want to create a graph of this. So let's go ahead and highlight our functions, our function table here. And let's click the insert button and let's insert a chart. And there we go. That's pretty much what we want it to look like, to be honest. Let's maybe change this title so it's just f of x equals 3x minus 4. And we'll call that good. We'll call that good. Now there is one more thing that I wanted to fill in here, which is the formula. And I wanted to point out something specific with the formula. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab the formula. Now I'm going to copy the formula, but I'm not going to copy the equal sign. I'm just going to copy that, and you can always just retype it there too if copying and pasting is too hard, right? Let's do it again, and you can see, we'll start seeing the pattern emerge here. Let's grab it right there. Okay, there you can kind of see what's going on, right? We're taking B4, so what the cell, whatever is contained in cell B4, is getting multiplied by 3, and then we're subtracting 4. This one's the same, except for now it's B5, right, and B6. Okay, so there you go. There's the formula. There's the f of x, the function value, and there's the x value, and there is the graph. All right, so you've got everything you need. Now let's go ahead and do something similar here for our sequence table. Okay, so let's come up with a sequence rule. So let's say xn equals, let's see, maybe we could do a simpler sequence here. Let's say xn minus 1 plus, let's just say 3. Okay. So this will be a simple sequence. A simple sequence is okay with me. Of course, you guys have to come up with different function rules and different sequence rules than what I come up with, but you could have them be somewhat similar if you want. Now, I'm going to use the shift down. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use the control or command caret button, the one you just saw me enter, comma. Sorry, to make this a subscript. And now I will probably be able to figure it out if you just leave it as a regular old normal script. If it's not a subscript, that's fine. So what this sequence rule does to compute a new sequence x of n, we're going to take the one prior and add 3. Okay, so let's do a couple here. 0 and 3, right? Oh, sorry, no. 0 and 0, right? And then 0 and 3. Okay, so this, I don't know why this looks a little off, but let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so 0 and 3, and then, of course, no. I keep messing up. Sorry. 0 and 0, and then the first term, now we start adding 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over to our sequence right here. And we'll build up something similar. We'll say term, number, and formula. Okay, so the 0 term has number 0. The first term has number 3. All right, and from here, let's go ahead and start building out our formula here. So we'll type an equal sign, and then we'll click on this cell, right? So the term before it, the x n minus 1, right? So we're computing the nth term right here. So we're going to get the n minus 1 term, and then we're going to add 3, and so on. Now we can copy and paste. So we'll hit that Command C. We'll select a bunch of things. We'll hit a Command V, and you can see our simple sequence of adding by 3 is right here. Okay, so now we can fill in these, or maybe we can even use a formula here. Equals this one plus 1, and then we can copy and paste here. So we've got our term numbers, and there they are. Okay, so let's see. Let's go ahead and turn this into a graph, and then I'm going to point out a couple of things here. So let's go to Insert, and we'll insert a chart. And this time I am going to change the chart type to a scatter plot, so that instead of having a solid line there, I have just dots. Now, why do I use a scatter chart here and I use a line graph here? Well, on this one, we could include any number. We can use negatives. We can use 0. We can use decimals, right? Any number at all. So that decimal in between 10 and 20, that 15, that 15.5, that 15.55, right? Any of those numbers are available to us. So I signify that with a line. However, with the sequence, I just start at 0 and I just build 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And decimals, negatives, those things are not available to me. Only whole sort of counting numbers are available, right? Only the natural numbers, I believe. No, maybe I'm missing out on the natural numbers. But anyways, there is why we use a scatter chart as opposed to a line chart. Now that was in the suggested, but you can also scroll down and find scatter right there. Okay, so that's one key difference here, right? Is that we use a scatter chart instead of a line chart, so that we remember that only certain numbers are eligible. Now the formula is going to look a little bit different here as well. Let's go ahead and copy and paste or retype if we want. Let's go ahead and copy and paste a formula right there. Oops, sorry, I put it in the wrong column right there. Okay, so here's the other difference I wanted to point out. In this formula, we're computing from the same column as our previous number, right? So we're taking from this column, the number column, whereas in our function, right, we were not taking from the C column, we were using the B column. So we were grabbing it from the X column, whereas in the sequence, we're taking it from the C or the number column, right? So these terms aren't actually being used to generate the sequence value. They're simply being used to keep track of the sequence values. Okay, so this video is getting long. I know this. Let's do one last thing here, and let's go ahead and paste our graph in so you can see how to do that. The easiest way to do it is just click somewhere, right? Click off the graph, click on the graph, hit a Command C or a Control C, and then come over here where you want to paste it and hit a Command or Control V. I generally paste unlinked, but linking it is good too. There we go. There is our sequence graph. Now there is one other way to do it. You can go here to Insert, and you can insert a chart from Sheets. Now you will have to find the sheet that you want. Let's click on that one, and you'll have to pick which of the two charts you want to insert, and you can import it that way as well. So go ahead and make use of that rewind function if you need to see any parts of this again, and good luck and have fun.